Los Angeles police arrested 15 gang members after a deadly rampage through the neighborhood called Watts last night. A woman was stabbed to death. Her husband was seriously injured by robbers on bicycles who carried out a series of attacks during a 10-minute spree. The mayhem comes a quarter of a century after Watts erupted in violent protest that captured international attention. Today, things seem to be worse. That is tonight's Focus Report from Jerry Bourne.
This is where black rage in urban America first exploded, a 3-square-mile area of mean, desperate streets and a few manicured lawns in the seamless sprawl of Los Angeles, a ghetto called Watts.
10 years old, I remember, Watts in an uproar. People were looting. People were running frantically throughout the streets.
I seen windows broke out, seen smoke everywhere.
They was burning the store right in front of my house.
I didn't want them shooting at me, so I stayed at home.
And now there's another building on fire on the north side of the street.
The riot started with the arrest of a black man for drunk driving and quickly spread from Watts throughout South Los Angeles. Before it ended 7 days later, 13,000 National Guardsmen had to be called in to restore order. 34 people were shot and killed, most by the authorities. 1,000 injured, 800 buildings destroyed or damaged at a cost of $40 million.
First one drops her hand, dead man.
It was a frightening time for America, but even more frightening and frustrating for residents 25 years later is how little has changed. Despite 2 new shopping centers, a new hospital, health center, and hundreds of new housing units, the new Watts that emerged from the ashes, most residents still live in fear and despair.
Can't get no worse. I don't believe.
Did the riot make any difference? Did life get better here?
No, didn't get no better.
Today, it's worse off than it was in 1965. People can't sleep at night because of either random shootings, gang violence, narcotic sales, prostitution. Indolent and insolent men and women walking the streets aimlessly with no hope in sight.
What did I do to me? Why you shoot me?
In 25 years, assaults have doubled, murders tripled. Drug arrests soared from a handful to 900 a year. Gangs rule many neighborhoods and the cocaine trade.
The price of life is a lot cheaper now here than it was 25 years ago.
By night, police squads and helicopters help keep peace in the housing projects, urban reservations where 1/3 of Watts' 60,000 residents live.
2 into 14. 2 down what is 14? 7. All right, Mom.
By day, community workers battle the odds. The majority of young people don't finish high school. At least 1 in 4 males has run-ins with police. By some estimates, the jobless rate is 40%. Without the social programs, the numbers would be even higher.
We know when we're going to lose them and when we're not going to lose them. We can just about tell you who will make it and who won't make it.
One of the bitter ironies for blacks trying to make it is that the neighborhood may rebound even if they don't. Speculators are buying up cheap property and selling mostly to Hispanics, now 40% of the population, expected to be the majority in Watts sometime this decade. And a new light rail system, along with a freeway project, has made Watts very attractive to outside developers. Reviving a Vietnam philosophy, the developers would raise part of Watts to save it. Residents are outraged.
We have all kind of Japanese in the neighborhood taking pictures of all our houses.
We damn sure don't intend for you to give it to the foreigners and the Japs and the Mexicans in the name of redevelopment.
Right.
We're not going to stand for it.
That's right.
Now, we done had one riot and one fire. We're going to burn the goddamn city down.
Could Watts explode again? Some observers say it's never stopped.
I think that the rebellion today occurs on a daily basis, and it takes the form of black-on-black crime. Large numbers of people isolated in poverty, sort of taking their frustrations out on one another.
Too many people self-destructing in drugs and drive-by shootings. Smoldering unrest that began a quarter century ago and now erupts nearly every night in the neighborhood. Jerry Bowen, CBS News, Watts.
And that's the news. I'm Bob Schieffer, sitting in tonight for Dan Rather. Good night.
After troubled but relatively calm, 15,000 National Guardsmen patrolling the shattered south section of the city. No official has even mentioned plans for pulling out the Guard. In fact, patrols are covering an even wider area. The danger zone is nearly 50 square miles. The 8 p.m. curfew imposed when the Guard moved in still is in effect there tonight. As residents and business people began moving cautiously around the streets for the first time since last Wednesday, they found the damage even greater than official estimates made at the height of the rioting. Operators of big retail chains may be able to collect on their insurance, but some of them say insurance companies may fight claims on the ground the damage resulted from an insurrection and therefore is not covered. Small businessmen may collect nothing. Emergency food distribution began this morning. Private agencies, including the Red Cross and Salvation Army, went in with food donated by private citizens and firms. The Guard escorted the relief people and kept the supply lines orderly. One Negro civil rights leader said food is essential. Get these people hungry, he said, in reference to the rioting, and you haven't seen anything yet. Everywhere is shambles.
Oh, I'm sure that it will. I think that the white leadership, the white people of our state, will recognize the frustrations of the Negro, and I think the Negro will understand the white person, and that one of these days, how long it'll be, that the broad understanding that existed before these riots will return. People are of goodwill, but we're all human beings, and we do make mistakes.
On the roof, and it barricades a block away in every direction. A virtual Bastille pressed back into emergency service to handle the largest arrest and court load in the city's history. The more than 2,500 arrests growing out of the past 4 days of Negro rioting. Many of the prisoners are held here. Others have been brought here by the busloads from other jails to be arraigned.
People's getting tired of being pushed around by you white people, that's all.
How pushed around? How badly? In what way?
In all kind of ways, as far as Newz is concerned. They were telling me, look around, you people's picking on them. Just stopping us on the street, kicking in the doors, taking them down to the police station, you're kicking your teeth in.
Well, they're stopping people on the street now.
Oh,
but
yeah,
I mean, they weren't
but
stopping
I'm not
people
speaking
on the
about
street
now.
when they started.
Oh, they've been done a long time before now.
What would it take to end it?
What would it take to get Chief Park out, for one thing? And break from this brutal force these sugar-habit policemen have.
Are you on the side of the rioters?
Yeah, I'm for them all the way.
Because of all this.
I don't know what happened and what the causing of it.
How has it affected you?
Oh, I have 5 children and we don't have anything to eat.
I think it started 400 years ago. And things just kept building up, and heat is one thing, and poverty is another. People are hungry, fed up, many things.
I don't think anybody would pretend that being a Negro is easy, but it does seem to me that it's easier here, for example, than it is in Harlem, that conditions aren't as bad here. What are people poor? What are they bitter about, really?
Well, they say about 60% of the people in Watts are out of work, doesn't have jobs, living on welfare of some sorts. And all these things are building up. People might have a TV, they can see the nice things in other parts of the city, and they're tired, they're hungry. They are more educated, they know what's going on in the world. They see millions and billions of dollars spent on rockets and first one thing and another. Sent overseas to other countries, and here in their own country, they're hungry, they're out of job. They just beat, they're letting off steam.
Well, see, it's basically on this cat named Parker. He no good for a couple people. And if he get out, I think everything will be okay.
Well, all I can see is the white police.
What would help it?
Well, maybe if they start being a little nicer and carrying their job out the way they should, and quit ordering people around, like they're dogs, and treat them like they're somebody. Well, maybe I think it would be better for both races, because it just don't make sense for the officers, to do us like they do us,
What will end it?
Now, that's a question that everyone want to know. The thing I think that would end it is a little more harmony on both sides.
Expressed how?
You have me there. That's kind of hard to say.
What would make it better? What would make all the rioting stop?
I don't think it'll ever stop, really.
Never?
I mean, it may not be like this, but it'll never stop. I don't think.
Sir, what do you think is the
Well,
problem?
My opinion is that I think people should get together more on this situation because there's a lot of innocent people, I mean, that would like to be out on the street that doesn't have any connection with what's going on. And I think there's a lot of problems. People here in California, there's too many foreign people that's taking opportunity from people that's Americans. I mean, using Mexican, for instance. And because for yesterday, for instance, well, I mean, I was laid off from my job, and I'm American myself. And now there were many guys that was Mexican that's still working that's not American. And I feel like that people in America should negotiate with people that's American better than they would people that's foreigners. That's my opinion. I don't think, I mean, putting people off on the street would solve the problem because there's too many innocent people that's on the street. I think they'll have to use a better solution than putting the people off on the street. It'll make the situation worse. That's my opinion on it. And,
I think it might help if the police pulled out for a while and tried to let it settle down by itself.
Well, one thing, for instance, when this incident happened over at Watts, I mean, they should have had to send some colored police over there for this reason because, I mean, they always keep the white police in the Negro neighborhood, for instance. I mean, when things are under control, but I mean, if they had sent some Negro police over there, no doubt they could have stopped it. And they made things worse.
Thank you. How about you? What do you think started all this?
Well, I think that it was mostly the police officers that started. They went over in Watts and tried to arrest the man, and his mother wanted to help him. She didn't exactly want to help him, but she was trying to talk to him, and I think they did something to her, and a few of the people on the sideline wasn't going to stand by and see that happen. And I think maybe if the police people just eased off, maybe they don't wait too late now, but I think if they had just eased off when they first started, well, some of that could have been avoided.
It's hard to imagine all this, 17 people dead or however many it is now, just from one alleged drunken driving arrest. Isn't there a deeper cause somehow?
Myself, I just got down here today where I heard that this officer, white officer, beat up a colored woman, and that's the lowest thing you can hit as a woman. And for a white man to do that, that's what I figure. That's all I got to say. That's what started off.
Would you get out in the streets and fight the police?
No, I wouldn't. But, because I wouldn't have the chance. He have a gun, and automatically they ain't going to fight you fair. They might hit you, but they see you getting the best of them, they're going to shoot you and say you're this and that. And when they lie, the man downtown take their word and fuck you on your word. That's what I figure. That's all I got to say.
How about you?
Well, I think they should get this stud named Parker out of the house. And really, if they get him out, things will be much better. That's all I got to say.
You think the rioting is going to go on until he leaves, do you?
No.
What do you think would help?
Would help this route? I don't know.
You think this is a racial thing, that the Negroes down here just think they've had a bad deal for too long and this is the only way they've got to say so? Or
From
what?
the time being last night, it's not only the Negroes, it's the white too. Now the white was breaking in these buildings, in hubs and in guy branks just as well as the Negroes were, because I was standing here on this corner looking when I was asleep in the house, and I heard somebody, the phone was ringing, and when I woke up, I heard the phone ringing, and I got up, and somebody said they got hubs. Well, okay, there are white people loading up their cars as well as the Negroes. So I don't know what's happening. I don't know who started and what started.
You wish it would end?
Yeah, it need to end. All the stores are closed. I mean, the stores would have left. None open. Get food. I don't know what's going to happen.
Kim. What do you think started all this?
Well, first, my knowledge was what happened in South LA when they arrested this young man. And
no, I don't need the answers. I'm just running through the questions so they can cut them with the answers you already gave.
Well, they handcuffed the guy and kicked him a couple of times. So then after that, a bunch of people were standing around. They seen what was happening. So that they just started. they just started, coming out, and everybody started like throwing bricks and bottles, and the first thing you know, they just had a big riot on hand.
Okay. What do you think would solve it?
Well, now it's...
Wait, I'm sorry. What do you think would solve it?
Well, now it's hard to say. It's really hard to say what would solve it now. It's gone so far. And I couldn't even dream of thinking what would solve it now.
You think this is basically a racial thing, just black against white?
No, I wouldn't say so. I would say that just the people are just, they're not satisfied the way the cops are handling arrests.
Do you think the police are mostly to blame?
Not in particular. The people take it out on themselves to do what they please, and the police only just aid in helping them to decide what they're going to do by seeing them, well, I think.
If the police chief resigned, would that calm things down?
At the particular moment you're talking about? I don't think so.
Would it help if the police pulled out for a few days and just tried to let things simmer down?
From where it stands, it wouldn't do much on if they pulled out of the state, because most of the damage would be done.
What do you think are the really deep causes of this? Not just the drunken driving incident, but what really prompts it all?
I think it's the heat. The people, so tempted, and it's just like around gunpowder. It's to get hot so long and explode. Well, the heat was, probably bearing down on the people. And that's the
Police out and leave the National Guard in because people resent the police.
Well, that might help a little. Some of the people in this area do resent the police, but you do have to have a police force, Without police, you would have a problem. Of course, they may be overbearing at times.
Is this just a racial thing?
I don't think so.
What is it then?
Well, it's just a buildup over a period of years. Some sort of buildup that you can't quite explain. I mean, I don't see any reason for some of the things that's happening.
Thank you. Why do you think all this started?
I don't know, see. I would have to be started what started, or how it started, see.
Racial thing, you think?
Well, I wouldn't think that should have anything to do with it.
Well, why then? I mean, is this a poor area and the people got mad because they were poor, or what?
Well, 9 out of 10, it don't have to be that, What's somebody? It's got to be somebody in everything to get it started, It's got to be a beginning, but me, I wouldn't know where it would start, because I'm not out at that time of hour when
I don't know what this is going to happen. I've been in tech. Not there, lad.
Sit down.
Oh, you said so. Sure. Why do you think all this started?
Wait a minute. I don't know.
Hey, what do you think started?
I don't know. I don't believe I want no picture made. I don't believe I want no picture.
What do you think all this rioting is all about? What started it?
Chicken shit brutality from the police department.
Sir, what do you think started all this?
I really couldn't say.
I think this is a racial thing.
Yeah, it's racial.
How?
Abuse, misuse. I mean, it's just something that's been building up over a period of years.
Well, what kind of abuse?
What kind of abuse?
Yeah.
Just racial abuse, just abuse toward the minority, the minority group.
Well, how do you feel you've been hurt? You're denied a job, the police give you a hard time. What specifically is it? Sir, can I ask you, what do you think starts all this?
Well, I don't know. It's I don't think they'd have much trouble if they had colored policemen in colored areas like here, because I know I've seen lots of arrests made, and a lot of them that, well, after they have a guy, they handcuff him, they kick him around after that. Well, after they handcuff a guy, there's nothing they can do anyway, so that's unnecessary.
Did it start because the police were bad, or are there other things
Well,
that just kicked it off?
Further as my knowledge, that's what really started it from the beginning. That's what started the whole thing. And I couldn't say that was the cause of it.
Is this a racial thing, really? You don't want white people down here?
Well, I couldn't say that because I only could speak for myself, and I couldn't cover the whole thing. I wouldn't say that that all that causes the whole thing, they don't want white people down here. I couldn't say. But I do know that, well, the cops, they take advantage of people in lots of ways.
Are you for the rioters or for the cops?
Well, I'm not for either one. I'm just a bystander, to tell the truth about it.
If you put all Negro policemen down here, haven't you really just segregated the police force the way housing is segregated?
Well, I wouldn't think so. I wouldn't say put all Negro policemen down here, but if you go out in Hollywood or Beverly Hills, you wouldn't see no colored cops riding around out there, I don't think. At least I never seen any out there. So that. I mean, thing like that makes a big difference if people just look at it from a point of view.
How about you? What do you think started it?
Well, I don't know. I just feel like this. That they shouldn't have kicked that boy down there. That's what I heard. They kicked the boy down there when they handcuffed him.
When was this?
Huh? When it first started down there in Watts.
You think the police really started it then? Is that it?
No, I don't really think they started. I guess it was the boy's fault too for drunk driving, to tell the truth.
Well, it seems huge for all this to start over one drunk driving.
Yeah.
Maybe he wasn't drunk.
Yeah.
Is there something deeper than this?
I don't know. Not to me though. It's not to me though. I'll be glad when it's over anyway.
How about you? What do you think started it all?
I don't know.
I've heard rumors that if Chief Parker would resign, they would, quiet down, stop. That is one of the major.
It's not going to solve these causes that go back 400 years.
No, it's not. Well, I think this will cool them off, and if someone would come in and let the people know that they mean good and intend to do good, and really get out there and do something for the peoples and stop holding back money and things that belong to the peoples. All this is, builds peoples up rather than, to start these things. So, it's been I wouldn't say planned, in the planning for a long time, but I know these things are in the people's minds. It's self-explanatory. People know what's going on inside.
The police?
No, not necessarily.
But you think the people are right who do that?
In a way.
How about you, man? What do you think is the... Do you think this is a racial thing generally, or is it just for the rioters, people out in the streets?
Well, yes, I do. And I think that maybe if... well, I don't know what to say about that. I just say that if the police people quit treating us so brutally, a whole lot of this here stop.
That's what the guy told me. What do you think started this all? What would help end it?
I don't know. Probably have to bomb it. That's about the best solution that I would have for it,
Sir, what do you think is the problem here?
Well, I think many things started, but I think the police incident out here, other things have developed, since this incident happened, these things. They're looting and things, just people's gonna do that naturally when they get a chance. A lot of people will.
Would you loot?
No, I'm against.
Larry, what do you think started this?
Well, that's kind of hard for me to say. I wouldn't know. It was just an instantaneous thing. Just happened all at once.
Is there a lot of resentment anyway that this just was the spark?
This week is the 25th anniversary of a violent episode in our history that we remember but don't celebrate. It was a deadly outburst of rage and destruction in the urban ghetto of Los Angeles called Watts, and it took many lives. This morning we're going to look back at what happened and why, and what lessons it taught us, if any. On August 11, 1965, Watts exploded in the summer heat of racial tension. Violence erupted when a young black man, Marquette Fry, was stopped for drunk driving by 2 white police officers. They said he resisted arrest. Witnesses claim police brutality.
Get the white man! Get the white!
The uneasy truce that had existed between blacks and whites in the poor Los Angeles neighborhood was shattered that night. And the rage grew into riot.
People's getting tired of being pushed around by you white people, that's all.
The only way it seems that we can ever get anybody at any time to listen to us is start a riot.
By the second night, 7,000 people rampaged. Angry black mobs setting fires, looting stores, attacking whites.
The difficulty is that the people who are getting hurt here are the police and innocent citizens, and the rioters are prevailing.
On the third day, Governor Pat Brown called in the National Guard. The flames of 1,000 fires had turned Watts into a burned-out version of its former self. When the smoke cleared and order was restored, official reports said 34 people were dead, 1,000 injured, and 4,000 arrested. Some estimates of the damage ran into the hundreds of millions of dollars, and the neighborhood came to be known by another name, Charcoal Alley. Joining us now from Los Angeles are Bob Richardson, who covered the riots for the Los Angeles Times, Marlon E. Newman, who was a member of the McCone Commission that studied the rioting and its causes, and California Assemblywoman Maxine Waters, who represents the Watts District today. Ladies and gentlemen, good morning. Bob, let's start with you.
Good morning to you.
Let's start with you, Bob. 25 years ago, why was there such anger in Watts?
Well, basically, at the time, people were coming out to California, to Los Angeles in particular, looking for a utopia. There was about 1,000 people a month arriving in Los Angeles. They had heard about the better life here. They wanted to get away from the South mostly. And when they came out here, they were finding some of the same conditions that they had left behind. So many things were happening around the country. The 4 little girls that were killed in a church bombing in Montgomery, Alabama. Malcolm X had been assassinated. The leaders, Kennedy had been assassinated. And things were just happening, and people were saying it won't happen here, but they were afraid that things were happening here, and they did not want it to go on.
Now, you were a courier for the Los Angeles Times, yet you were sent in as a reporter. What were the circumstances behind that?
Well, actually, working as a courier, I was coming in on from my route one afternoon back to the Los Angeles Times, and I kept hearing on radio news programs that police were expecting another major confrontation, and I hadn't heard about the first one, where they were saying another. Other stations were saying another riot in South Los Angeles, and they kept pinpointing 116th and Avalon. All right, I went to school in the area at Fremont High School, and I couldn't fathom what they were talking about, a riot, and I decided to drive down into the area, and when I got there, there were about 2,000 people lining the sidewalks, mostly middle-class black people, waiting for the same thing they had heard on the radio, that police were expecting a riot, and they wanted to see this riot. After about an hour, the crowd got restless. There was a group of young people that lived in the area, a club called the Shandus. They were sort of edged on by the older and middle-class crowd, the working-class crowd, and rocks were thrown, and one rock was thrown, and a black lady was driving a car, and she panic stopped, and she was plowed into a chain reaction collision by 4 other cars, and they were unfortunately driven by white people, who were then dragged from their cars and beaten. Other people in the community came out of their houses and rescued those white people and took them into their homes. But the riot was on, and the anger had begun, and it was rest is history.
Marlon, you served on the commission that was put together to study the problems of Watts.
Yes,
how serious were those problems, the unemployment, police-community relations? How serious were those problems?
They were very serious, and they were far more serious than the white community realized. The unemployment was a very large factor, of course, but the frustration of the way in which blacks, as the term then, of course, was Negroes, which the whites didn't consider pejorative, The frustration in the way the police treated them, the police drive-thrus, the intrusions into their lives, the overcrowding, which was not particularly visible from the street, the overcrowding in schools, the changes, the lack of literacy, because we found that in one school there was a 300% changeover of children in 1 year in that school. They were moving around so much. All these things were building up frustration. And it was hot in August, and the frustration just burst.
Now, Maxine, you represent the people of Watts today. How strong is the memory of 25 years ago in your community?
Well, I think it's very strong. It's very strong because we just went through a budget battle here in the state of California, and the governor just slashed millions of dollars from health programs, education programs, seniors programs. And when you see that kind of thing, you know that there has never been a real commitment to changing the quality of lives of people here in this community. So people remember.
Are they, you mentioned the dealings from the governor's office. How have the problems of 25 years ago, have they been dealt with today?
Not really. We've had some changes, but it's not enough. It's too little, too late. And the problems have changed. They're worse even in some instances. We didn't have the drug situation. Right. We've got drugs and gangs, and those housing projects are sitting there. Nickerson Gardens, Jordan Downs, Imperial Courts, Avalon Gardens, and Hacienda, and the kids are poor. The dropout rate in the schools are approaching 50%, and unemployment among black males is probably 60–70%. Nobody's willing to commit the dollars and the time to really change the quality of lives and to put in the resources that are necessary.
Bob, another question for you. What are your impressions of Watts today, 25 years later?
They're just about the same. There have been a lot of cosmetic changes. Shopping centers have been put into neighborhoods. There are housing projects. There are churches and other organizations, private industry, that are trying to do the best they can, but those programs are isolated. For the average young kid on the street, there's a lot of hopelessness, anguish, despair, and the crack cocaine is taking its toll in the community. And these kids have to be rescued because we're going to lose a whole generation of young black people.
I do want to put in something here, though, that surprised me this morning as I was driving here, and that is the enormous breadth and stretch and expanse of black homes and black areas in Los Angeles since those riots. The term Watts covers only a small part of the area where the riots took place, and also a small part of the area that is now beautiful area lived in by blacks. So we're concentrating, of course, today on things that are wrong, but I just wanted people to know that there are other places, lots of places in Los Angeles that's an enormous black community.
Maxine, do you think that what happened 25 years ago could happen again?
I hate to say it, but it certainly can. I work very closely with these young black males in these housing projects. And because of the gang situation, the local police department and Daryl Gates, the chief, has responded to them with gang sweeps. And they kind of go through the community after these drive-by shootings, and they just grab everybody up. They forced young black males to sign statements saying that they were gang members, and they had what was known as a gang member abatement kind of law. I walked through the community through Jordan Downs housing projects. Young black males were angry that they were being forced to sign this, this piece of paper that said they were in a gang. Some of them were not in gangs, but the police forced them to sign it. Yes, there is anger, there is hostility, and the hopelessness that was described earlier is certainly there. I don't like to predict that bad things can happen, but I want to tell you, it's not only in Los Angeles, America's inner cities are in trouble. These housing projects where young black people are piled on top of each other without any social services, without any jobs, without any job training, a country that's not committed to training them is in trouble. And yes, there is a danger.
Maxine Waters, Marlon Newman, Bob Richardson, I want to thank you so much for being with us this morning.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Paula?
And thank you, Mark. 22 minutes after.